There we go. You comfy? Good?
I'm right now.
All right. So, I figured I'd ask you guys about stuff that, well, frankly, I learned about in history books, but you guys have experienced in real life. And I just think it would be kind of neat to get your opinions on certain events in history.
Don't go back too far.
Well, you just let me know if you don't know anything about stuff. So, because you guys grew up in the Depression, how much did you know about like FDR and the stuff that he implemented?
Well, Bob probably knows more than I do because we didn't have access to a radio. My dad had one, but us kids couldn't listen to it. So everything that come over the radio, if he had it on, then we heard it if we was in the house. But if he didn't have it on, we didn't get, it was hands off. It was his radio. And it was run by batteries. And so it was a telephone, wasn't it? The telephones back then, didn't they have batteries in them?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And
The radios we plugged in. We had
we didn't have electricity.
first radio we had was 32 volt, and we had the power system in the basement. Dad put it in, and had, I think, was 16 big water batteries in the basement on a stand, and you had water in them and hooked up to the generator was this motor, and you cranked this, got this motor started, and that generated electricity and was stored in the battery, and you had to start that motor up when you washed that day because the batteries wouldn't have enough electricity stored in them to complete the washing, run the motor on the washing machine.
So you had a washing machine growing up?
Yeah.
Wow.
We had a washing machine, but it was had a gas engine that ran. We put gas in it and started the motor up, and that run the machine. We didn't have any electricity there at that place.
Did you guys buy soap for it then, or did you make soap for it?
Well, we bought some soap, and then my mother made a homemade soap.
Yeah.
But it didn't last. You know, you didn't have enough to last a year round.
Mm-hmm.
I made soap.
How do you make it?
Oh, you take tallow from beef and melt it, mix lye with it, and so much water. I've got 2 recipes for soap. I used to make it when we was first married. Lived on the farm, made soap. And the tallow soap was just as white as snow. And if you made it out of the pork rinds, you boiled them until you got all the grease out of them. And then you mix lye with those. But that soap was a little bit darker. But
Did you know that lye was dangerous at the time, or?
Well, but they just used it then all the time. That was something, that was a household thing you used.
Wow. And you guys had like bleach and things like that?
I don't remember about that.
Yeah.
I think we had bleach when we were married. But they put clothes on if they needed whitening up, they'd put some soft water on the stove. Then they'd boil those clothes in it, and that whitened them up. I don't know.
Wow.
So I don't think they had bleach in those times when I
Now-
was growing up as a kid.
So you had washing machines. What other kind of appliances did you guys have?
Not an electric refrigerator, we didn't. We had an old wooden thing that they put ice in when we had thrashers. Dad'd go to town and get a big chunk of ice and bring it home and put it in that wooden refrigerator type thing. And it would keep for I don't know how many hours. And that would make a great big, what'd they call those things that they made the iced tea in? Great big 15, 20-gallon crocks, containers.
What did you guys put in this ice box? You didn't have to put cream or anything in there. Or,
Well, you did if you wanted it to keep sweet very long.
oh, okay.
We used a lot of cream, especially sour cream. You could make a sour cream cake. And that's what I always made at night for school lunches the next day. I had to make 6 school lunches. And I'd take a small cake.
Wow.
And so you didn't have ice all the time. On the 4th of July, they always had ice because we made ice cream. And they'd chop that up and fill the freezer. And there'd be a big enough chunk, there might be some left to put in the refrigerator.
What was your favorite snack growing up?
Oh, gee. We didn't have a lot of snacks.
Well, just your favorite foods.
I don't know. We did not every day you made a cake or something because that big a family used it all up in one day.
Gosh. Now, did you have anyone else living with you guys except just your siblings and your parents?
No.
No.
At one time they had a hired man who lived with us. And we had a hired man when my brother Farrell had to go to service. And he lived with us
Okay.
while he was there. But he wasn't there too long.
Did you guys have to hire hands for the farm when your brothers left?
What?
Did you have to hire?
When your brothers left,
Mm-hmm.
did you hire help?
Yeah.
Who'd you hire?
John, we had John. Oh, I can't say his name.
Did he live with you?
No.
I was going to say, because you stopped at my place and you was always alone.
No.
No, our hired man that we had when my brother had to go into service. He came there on a truck from Missouri and stopped at my brother's elevator. And Dad was over there, and he hired him. And when he first come in the door, I thought, oh, no.
What was he like?
He looked like a convict.
Oh, gosh.
I was in high school. And that was my thoughts.
How old was he?
Oh, he was in his 20s. Late 20s, probably. But anyway, he never got any mail. He never called anybody. Nobody ever called him. Strange deal. And then one day Mom was washing. She went through his pockets and his belongings, and she couldn't find any draft card. So she turned him in.
Oh, my gosh.
He's a draft dodger.
No way. I was just going to say, because he was that young, I would have expected him to be fighting.
And then one day the sheriff drove in, stopped at the house and asked where the men were. They weren't very far from the house. He drove up there and put handcuffs on him and put him in the car, and away he went. Didn't take no clothes or anything. My dad never could figure out how they knew he was there.
Your mom never told him.
She told me, and that's... Yep. The sheriff drove in one day and picked him up.
Did you know a lot of people who tried to dodge the draft?
No.
No.
He was, I don't know where he was from. Somebody said he was from Colorado. I don't know.
Gosh.
Never called anybody. Nobody called him. He never wrote any letters. He never got any.
Wasn't right.
And so I was half scared of him, really.
Yeah. Definitely.
But
Now, one of the other questions I had was, I remember watching a documentary on FDR and the different things he kind of came up with, and there was the CCC. Were you guys ever involved with that?
No, they were hired employees by that service, by the Army. And they had Roosevelt come in, and to give the men a job, there were so many people out of work, and so he developed this CCC program and then that give people in the county authority to hire people who didn't have a job, and they would get $4 a day.
Wow.
And that was good wages.
Did you know anybody who was in it?
Well, I suppose it did, I don't remember.
yeah, when I was in high school, there was kids older than I was, but they were young people
Mm-hmm.
in that CC camp. I don't know why they weren't in the service then. There's a lot of them were. You couldn't hardly hire anybody to work because they were all in the Army. There was a draft and you didn't have a choice. You had to go. It wasn't like now. You
Yeah.
signed up and went.
Yeah.
You were drafted. And
So you were drafted, no, you weren't drafted because of your health, right?
I was drafted and went in for examination twice.
So what was wrong?
Well, I was born that way. I was always had problem with constipation.
Yeah.
well, she asked you what was wrong.
Well,
You had an enlarged what?
enlarged colon, and I always had to take laxative.
Okay.
And
This is being recorded.
It's just a health thing. It's not. But I mean, just because of that, they wouldn't let you in the Army for that. How'd you feel about that?
Well, he was really needed at home because his brothers all went to service. His sister was in the service as a nurse.
there were 6 of us, and 5 of them went in service.
Were you relieved that you didn't have to go, or?
My sister was in the Navy.
She asked if you were relieved that you didn't have to go.
Yes, damn right it was. Because I didn't know how I would function. I couldn't be put out in some island and with no laxative and things to take care of myself. I'd have been dead.
So
Somebody had to keep the home fires burning.
So how many years were your brothers gone then, total?
Well, Bill I think, was gone 3, and Walt was gone 4, And I don't remember now how many years Edward was in the Navy, but he pulled a full stretch in the Navy.
Probably 4 years.
And then Tom went in later on because he was younger, and he didn't see any combat. He was just drafted and then went in and more or less guarding. He got shipped to Europe, and more or less they had troops over there. I don't know what their jobs was, but guarding the United States interests.
Okay. So I know that you mentioned about one of your brothers before. Do you remember where all of them were stationed?
Well, they went all. Bill went into. Well, went to Chicago first, and the Great Lakes training station. And then they discharged him out of there to different camps in the States for training, where they got their Army training.
How long did that take?
Usually 6 weeks.
That fast? Oh my gosh.
I thought that Great Lakes was Navy, the Navy.
It is a Navy. They had, I don't know what it was, but anyway, Bill had to report to Chicago and then was just sent someplace else. And Missouri had an Army training station down there. I don't remember the name of it. But I was working for the state, went down there to see about Army the state could buy Army surplus equipment on the college farm if we were last in line. If nobody else wanted it, why we had a chance to get something. And we went down to pick up a truck, and it had a big hoist on it to pick up loads, and somehow the frame got bent up in the middle. And there it was sitting, and there was no way that you could drive that thing anyplace. And but we did get a motor grader one time out of Missouri. They hauled it in on a semi, and the motor grader, when it was in operation, had 6 wheels on the ground. The back 4 wheels drove it or propelled it, and the 2 steered it. In front steered it, and when they brought it in, unloaded it, had 1 tire on it that had air in it. The rest of them was no tires or flat. And they dropped parts off of it, and I had to go to Caterpillar downtown Des Moines and get parts to put those parts back on so it could get the engine started.
Now, did you ever learn how to do this, or did you just kind of make it up as you went along?
Oh, you had to figure out what it needed, and which wasn't too difficult, and you knew where it had a fuel line and led from the fuel tank to the motor, and you could see where it was uncoupled. The tank was dry. They took the bearings out of the steering sector up in front so he couldn't steer it. And they had a pony starting, 2-cylinder starting motor, and it was in bad shape. It had evidently been run out of oil sometime or other because the crankshaft was flat, and you started up and revved the motor up, and it sounded like it was going to fly apart.
So did you work on the tractors at home then too?
Yeah, they always had something they just taken apart and put them back together.
Yeah, the farm tractors we had, we got using oil. go buy the parts that went in the motor and take the motor out and lay it across the frame and put them in new parts and new rings and new bearings and put gas pans back on it and start it up.
Wow.
In those days, you could take a car and take it apart and get the parts for it. It wasn't that complicated. But now you can't do that anymore because you have to go to special schools to learn how to do that now.
Oh, yeah.
But
So
they overhaul a car, a motor.
Yeah. Now, what was the first car? Well, I'll start with Grandma. What was the first car you ever drove?
Well, my sister and her husband lived a couple miles from us, and he taught me to drive.
How old were you?
Well, I don't know, I suppose you had to be, what, 16?
Oh, you didn't learn before that? You were a good girl then. What kind of vehicle did they have?
Probably a Ford.
I think it was a Ford of some kind.
What about you, Grandpa?
They had Model A Fords.
We had Model A's and oh well.
I drove that once and put it in the ditch when it was muddy.
Now, did they have like roads or was it just all dirt?
They had roads that had gravel on them, and some of them had dirt. We lived on a dirt road for quite a while. And if it got too rainy, you just didn't go anywhere. Or if it wasn't too bad, you'd drive out in the mud. A little difficult to drive, but it wasn't too deep, you could get through.
Oh, man. So, what was the first car that you guys had together?
Old 37 Pontiac.
What was that like? Did it have any quirks?
Well, it was well used.
It quit on the road one day.
Was that the last of it, or?
We fixed it up and
Not that time we went to Montezuma and you bought that Ford truck.
then we traded it off and got a new Ford pickup.
And did you buy that with cash or did you use credit?
Check.
Check? Wow. So when did you guys ever use credit?
Have what?
Like credit? Like credit cards and things like that?
There wasn't any credit cards then.
No card. Give me green cash or a checkbook. Check out a checkbook.
From the bank.
Did you ever use them ever? Even when they started coming out?
The first time we got a credit card was when we was going on a trip. And you had to have one to get rent a car,
And that was it.
as far as I know.
Do you have one right now?
Yeah, we have one from the bank. That's the only one we have anymore. We used to have one from Sears, Penny's, but we didn't use them. And besides, we didn't want to get a big charge on a credit card someplace, and then we usually paid for stuff when you got it.
And do you think that's just a mentality from growing up around the Depression?
Yeah. And during the Depression, well, first, the folks moved to a farm that they rented. And I don't know if there was a drought that year or the next, but anyway, didn't rain. And and we had cows to milk, and they had to have grass. The only place there was any grass was along the roadway in the ditches, where the water run down, you know, and made the grass grow. So we had to herd the cows along the roadway in order for them to get enough grass to produce milk.
Wow.
We'd pack a lunch and take along with us. There'd be 2 of us to go together, 2 girls. And we'd sing songs, and we'd take some little sewing to do or something to pass the time away.
Now, were you riding horses during that?
Mm-hmm.
You would be sewing while riding a horse?
No, we'd
Oh.
be stopped somewhere
Okay.
under a tree somewhere.
I was just going to say, that'd be pretty dangerous.
Then it'd get afternoon, and we'd take the cows back home to be milked. 'Cause every day we had to do that.
Wow. Now, I remember Mom telling me that you used to sew all their clothes growing up. Did you ever, you just learned how to sew growing up, or?
I took sewing class in high school, and then my mother sewed a lot, so we were used to run the sewing machine.
Her first sewing machine's out there in the kitchen.
I remember. How many motors have you gone through?
How many what?
Motors?
Well, it's the only motors ever in that one.
I thought someone told me that that was your 3rd sewing machine motor.
No.
No? Oh, I guess Mom was exaggerating then.
We had a portable to give your mom.
Your mother borrowed my portable sewing machine and took home because she said she had a lot of mending to do
Oh, really?
this last time she was here. She probably thought she'd get it done before she had to go back to work. And
So what do you guys think of the way technology has changed the world?
well, it's too fast for us, but naturally. But when I think back, that's what our folks thought too when they got older. So
What things were coming around when they were older?
Oh my. So many things. Okay, just televisions back in the 50s. And in the 40s, every farmer about got electricity brought to your house, and you had if your house wasn't wired, they hired an electrician come in, put wiring in your house, and then you could have light switches and lights in the house.
How did that change things?
a lot because we had kerosene lamps for light. I remember studying at night with a big kerosene lamp on the table. We had 2 Aladdin lamps, and they had a mantle. I don't know what that was made out of, but you had to be very careful when you put that new mantle on, because you could stick your finger through it and just fall apart. And didn't have to change them very often, but every night there'd be one of us designated to get the lamps ready. You had to fill them with oil or the kerosene and get them ready for the evening.
So you guys didn't use candles or anything like that?
Not very many.
So what do you guys think when you first saw television?
I don't know when I first saw it, really. We got it when Carol was little. Not when she was a baby, but after she got up and... Well, when we lived at Story City there, she was going to school. First, 2nd grade.
Was that just a black and white set?
Mm-hmm. That's all they had then. And the colored sets came in, I don't know when we got the colored one. But they lasted quite a while then. I don't know, now they probably don't last as long. They make things now to not last very long so they can sell another one. It's true. And yeah, electricity was probably the biggest thing that came in that people really was happy about. And I'm sure there was other things. I know when I was teaching school, I bought a electric mixer. I told Mom to use it, but she would never use it.
Well, and you guys don't really use the internet or anything like that.
I guess I shouldn't say we was too old to start, but you have to have the interest in it too, or else no use trying to do it.
Yeah. But what about movies? You guys saw movies when you were dating.
Yeah. That's all there was about to do.
Was it in like a theater?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Montezuma had a theater we went to. I think New Sharon had one. Burnell had one. And
Oskaloosa had one.
yeah,
Sigourney had one.
there were quite a few movie theaters.
Were there any like drive-in ones, or were these all just?
These were all inside. There was a drive-in one up by Des Moines when we lived at Ankeny. We went to take the whole family in the car and sit there and watch it. For so much money, you could put the car in 3 or 4 kids.
Wow.
They had a speaker you pulled up along this stand at your car and take this speaker off, and it had a volume control on that. You could watch the picture up on the screen way up here, and you turn the speaker up and then you could hear what they were saying.
What happened if the weather went bad?
Well, it was just the summertime because they didn't have it in the winter. Drive-in ones. But I guess we never was there if a storm come up.
That's true.
We didn't go too often.
Yeah.
Sometimes if we had company, we'd take them and go. And when we went, we'd pop our own popcorn and take it in the car and something to drink. And then they'd flash all these goodies on the screen that you could buy, and then of course the kids wanted some of that.
Things haven't changed.
Remember that?
Oh, yes.
But,
They were selling popcorn and candy and pop. They'd flash that on the screen.
So how much was it to buy like a thing of popcorn?
I don't remember.
I don't remember back then. It wasn't really that much, but like it is now.
Yeah.
I don't know how much it is now. We haven't been to the movie theater for a long time. The last time we went, we got up and left. The movie was so bad and so dirty. We haven't gone back. We used to rent these tapes and play them. And if you didn't know what was in it, you just got it. Well, some of them were so bad we didn't get them anymore. So.
Do you
we don't see
remember?
too many movies.
When I'm just thinking the price of certain things. Do you remember what the price of gas was when you were growing up?
Yeah, and we come out here in 63, 29 cents a gallon.
Well, when we were dating and running around, there'd be signs along the road, 3 gallons for $1. 3 gallon for $1.
Wow.
And I was little part of 15. I was working on, went that summer with my uncle to town on Saturday night always. One guy had, kind of clever guy, he had a sign up, 5 gallons, 89 cents. Triazel first.
Wow. That's incredible. Did you ever think that it'd get this high? Because I don't, what is it lately? It's like $3 a gallon right now.
It's $3.07 a gallon now.
Oh. Gosh.
But after our president got in, that's the only way they could, one way they could recover money from everybody is put a tax of, I don't know how much per gallon on every gallon, and then whoever was selling the gas had to turn around and pay that back to government.
So, what are your thoughts on the war that we're fighting right now?
Well, I think they've been in there too long, and our country spent so much money fighting wars. That's why we're so broke. And I just think it's time to call it a halt. Has been for a long time. Time to stop. Then they went in there to Afghanistan. Well, I don't know if they should have went in there or not. But
I think it was a mistake, and Bush is one. Well, they went in once, and Iraq wasn't ready, and they slaughtered a bunch of people and went quite a ways in, and they thought there was a pushover. And then all of a sudden Iraq naturally had oil to sell and got mobilized, and then decided to go in again, and well, hell, they had armaments then. And to get into these countries like where they're fighting now, Russia was in that, had a war with this country and backed out because they couldn't, those natives get out in the hills, and they couldn't conquer them. And there's so many different countries giving weapons back and forth to each other, or punishing them, or whatever. It's mighty tough to even think about them, controlling them.
Is it the same kind of, how do you see it compared to like the Vietnam War?
Well, there's another example. We went in and we just, we were prepared, but they'd hide out, and there were so many of them, and Chinese, one of the Chinese was backing the Vietnamese, and their power strength was many times all Chinese soldiers, and they could have a slaughter of troops out there compared to the Americans.
So it's just a completely different mentality than when you guys were growing up. Because I know people saw World War II in a completely different way. It was necessary.
Mhm.
Did you guys feel that way at the time?
Well, I think my parents probably did. It just seemed like anymore there's always a war somewhere,
Yeah.
and they send troops.
I mean, even though you guys were out on the farm, how much information were you getting about what was happening out there?
Well, if we had a radio or a paper, that was your,
Mostly tell where the troops were that day, and
any big battles going on, or if some big ship or got sunk, or if they're fighting in one location and won or lost a big hill, or they got pushed back, or they went ahead and captured a bunch of ground.
So you guys checked every day.
We had information on what was going on.
Yeah.
probably might not have been all the correct information.
But we didn't hear all the details. But we knew the areas where there was troops fighting.
Gotcha. Did they? Did they have like propaganda films about
Yes.
about like what?
Or they'd have the Japanese had a gal broadcasting over the radio to the American troops.
What was her name? Rose?
I don't know I don't remember what her name was now, but
Rose was part of it.
she would volunteer over the American radios. But fellas, you go home, your wives are waiting for you, and your babies are back there needing help, and just saying stories like that.
Oh gosh, I never heard about that.
Oh yeah.
I never heard him doing that, so.
Most time we never heard it, but it would be broadcast in the paper
Oh,
about, or in the newsreel about
was it Tokyo Rose?
Yeah. Tokyo Rose had to give a speech to the American, propaganda speech to the American troops.
And then did you guys have any films that you saw about Hitler or Stalin or anything like that?
Well, we knew about both of them. Hitler was, he was one that, after he was in the army in World War I in 18, and then he got out and went on and and he brought up his own organization to get followers. Germany was financially in bad trouble, so he had to recruit the people and offer them big things like that and to get them to follow him, and consequently he would get France started to build guns, trucks, things like that. And when he come in, he was, then when he started out of Germany, it went Poland, France, and the Netherlands, and Italy. Mussolini was their leader, and they joined Hitler. And then they went on head towards Russia. First Russia was with them, and they got in a fuss, and then Russian troops fought German troops. And the end of it was Hitler was on two fronts. The Western fronts fighting American Federation, and then the Eastern fronts with Russian. And Germans had some smart ideas as far as the fighting equipment went. No doubt about it. And their engineering was good. But the thing was, he didn't take in consideration, well, one of his main generals, Rommel, was sent to North Africa, and he lost out against the British in North Africa, and he come back to Germany, and Hitler gave him a position or responsibility, I should say, General Erwin Rommel. Well, Rommel didn't agree with Hitler, and him and some other guys tried to kill Hitler. And they found out afterwards who the culprit was, and Hitler told Rommel, "I'll give you a elaborate funeral, and all the notoriety and so on like we've done, but you've got to be killed." So Rommel was killed by himself or some of Hitler's group, and they give him this big fancy funeral and decorate him and all the good stuff he'd done. But actually he tried to kill Hitler, and Hitler had to get rid of him.
And you found this out over the radio and the newspaper?
Later on, yes.
Now, it was so secret the way they did all this, but how much were you guys knowledgeable of the Manhattan Project?
I don't know.
What were your thoughts when they dropped the bombs in Japan?
We didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
The thing with it is, we fought, and so many campaigns, and it cost so many lives, and they were so, their quality of life was so, whether they lived or died was so insignificant that if you were out there and killed, one of their soldiers killed somebody, that's fine. But if they got killed, it didn't make any difference. Like on the one island that they had, that Americans, Marines went in, took it was the heaviest casualty of any place in the world. We lost 7,000 American troops and Marines, and the island had 22,000 Japanese on them. They killed them.
No, your brother was stationed out there, right?
Yeah, but he wasn't in on that island. He was on 5 different islands, but that wasn't one of them. That was close home base to Japan that they could land planes on, refuel, and get their carry on their war further away from home. That's what the reason it was so important.
Gotcha. And then, where were you when you first heard about the Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor?
I was at home that day and we heard it on the news.
Well, December 7th and 41 is when they struck.
And did you hear that day?
Oh yes, right away.
Yeah.
Roosevelt announced it.
And do you think that the United States was looking for just a reason to go to war, or?
We knew that if they struck, we were at war.
Yeah, but it was a surprise when it happened.
We didn't know when they were going to strike us. We had fear that they were building up to it. But when they hit Hawaii and on a sneak attack, and we lost an awful lot of ships and one ship had 1,300 sailors on it.
Did you know anybody that was there?
There was a question about one boy that I knew. I don't know whether, but anyway, he was killed someplace. And it was a sneak attack, and if they'd known how heavy the casualties they inflicted on us, we might have had an awful time coming back and get mobilizing enough to put up a fight.
Now, you guys lived in the Midwest, but did you know about the camps that they set up for Japanese Americans? How was that explained to you guys?
Well, it didn't bother us because they were on most of the West Coast.
Yeah.
They had penal camps for Germans too. And they got further into the Midwest, the camps with them. But the Japanese were, families were corralled mostly on the West Coast.
And did they just tell you that that was for their own safety, or how did they explain it?
Well, it was for our protection to have control over them. So if they had sympathizers, they couldn't cause a war right on the West Coast.
Gotcha. And how much information did you guys get about the camps in Europe?
Not much.
Really? It was only after the war that you found out what was going on?
They didn't disclose much about camp life and things like that, but they were barricaded in wire camps, and they were fed, and they weren't starved or things like that.
I'm thinking about the work camps and the concentration camps. I mean, did they
We never heard much about that.
really?
And it was, if the Japanese or the Germans had captured foreign troops, so many times they were destroyed, just slaughtered. The Germans had these war camps where they hauled Jews in freight cars, put them in a chamber, had them strip all their clothes off, and took all their commodities that was any good, and their clothing, and then gassed these people. They were killed, and they were destroyed by putting them in a fire furnace, cremated.
And you guys weren't told about any of this until after
Oh, yes.
Oh, you were? Okay.
We found later on in the war, we was telling, when they'd capture a camp, where the prisoners were held, why there was the whole thing that could figure out what was going on. But at first we didn't know about it.
Wow.
Mainly they were after the Jewish people. Anything was Jewish blood in them. That was their enemy, first off. Anything that, if they were in business and had a store or something like that, they would put signs on the windows and so on like that to make it, and then come and load them up at night and capture them and load them up and put them on a train and ship them out.
How important do you think it is for people to learn about these things so that they don't happen again?
Well, I think it's important because history repeats itself. There was a book that our United Methodist women had to read. We have books that you can read about missions, and this one was about, her name was Tori Kenboom or something like that. And she wrote a book after she'd been through these camps and stuff, and how terrible it was. And I read that one time, it wasn't good. And they probably still have the book, but I don't know where you get it. When people would walk for miles at night to get away from being captured.
There's a lady right here in the east side of town that her and her mother, she was a little girl, and her and her mother escaped at night to get away from the Germans.
Here in Stockton?
Yeah.
No way.
She's a grown-up married woman now. Her parents are gone. She was a little girl, and her mother took care of her the best she could.
I mean,
And there was people that would take somebody into their house and hide them in their house.
mm-hmm.
And the soldiers would come along and raid the house and look for people. They had them stowed away somewhere.
I can't think the little girl's Jewish girl.
Oh, Anne Frank.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to read her diary in middle school. Of course, we hated it at the time, but we learned a lot from it. What books did you guys have to read growing up for school?
We didn't have too many reading programs. We have a lot more now.
So it's basically just grammatical stuff and...
Oh, in the English class we'd have these Shakespeare and like that. I hated those.
And you had to teach them eventually, didn't you?
No, we didn't teach them in country school.
Oh, that's right, high school.
We didn't have that, any of that. That was high school.
So then, both of you went to high school, finished high school, and then you went on, was it to college for teaching?
Mm-hmm.
And you just started working on the farm then. What do you think of colleges nowadays?
I think it's terribly important.
I think it's all right for a lot of kids, and there's some kids that go and just have fun.
If you
Spend a lot of
were,
money and-
yeah, if you were a kid, if you were my age now, in 2010, what do you think you would do for a living?
I don't know. I